Hey everyone, welcome back. You guys really wanted us to do a deep dive into understanding what happens after you finally get out of a relationship with a narcissist.
Yeah, and it's something that we hear about a lot,
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy topic,
for sure.
and it can be really hard to wrap your head around. So
Yeah.
to try and get some clarity on this, we're going to be looking at an excerpt today
Okay.
from a longer piece. The title of it is, So What Happens When You Finally Decide? And the decide part is really what we want to focus on here.
I think that's a great place to start.
Because deciding to leave is,
It's only beginning.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is a journey.
Absolutely.
And it's not always clean and easy. And, our hope is that this deep dive can offer you some insight
Yeah.
and support.
Yeah. I think one of the things this source really drives home is that it's not just a decision you make with your head.
Right.
It's much deeper than that.
Yeah. And the source uses this phrase that I love. It talks about internalizing it deep within your bones.
I like that.
So it's not like an intellectual understanding. It's something more profound, something that shifts in your core.
Yeah.
So what does that even feel like? How would you describe that to someone who's maybe just starting to experience this?
It's almost like finally seeing through an illusion. Have you ever seen those pictures that at first glance look like one thing, and then you relax your eyes and suddenly it's something completely different?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that. You start to see the narcissist's manipulations for what they really are,
Okay.
and the hold they had over you, it starts to loosen.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a turning point then, right?
Yeah, I think you could say that.
But the source makes it clear that it's not all smooth sailing after that. There can be these moments of doubt, and sometimes the narcissist will try to pull you back in,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
which can be really confusing.
Absolutely.
There was this one line in here about settling out of fear
Oh, yeah.
that really stood out to me.
Right. It's like, on one level, you know better, but that fear.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. And it can really hold you back from breaking free.
So how do you even start to work through that fear? I mean, what have you seen that works?
It's interesting. I've heard a lot of people describe it as this feeling of being caught in a riptide.
Ooh, that's a powerful image.
Right. You're trying to swim to shore, to safety.
Solid ground.
Yeah, exactly. But the current just keeps pulling you back out.
Ooh, so what is that current?
Yeah.
What's actually making it so hard to break free?
Well, it can be a lot of things. Sometimes it's that fear of the unknown, being alone. Maybe even the fear that they were right about you all along.
Oh, wow.
Which, of course, isn't true.
Right.
But when you're in that place of fear, it's hard to see clearly.
Absolutely. And that's where the narcissist might sense an opening.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And try to pull you back in. The source calls it hoovering. Like a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
Just sucking you back into the dysfunction.
Exactly. And they're good at it, too. Really good.
Well, yeah. I mean, they've had practice.
Right. It's like their specialty.
Yeah.
So it can be incredibly convincing, especially when you're already feeling vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, it's like being drawn to a flame, even though you know you're going to get burned.
It is. It's exactly like that.
So recognizing those patterns, that's huge.
Huge. It's
Right.
one of the first steps to breaking free.
Okay. So let's say you start to recognize it. You're seeing it for what it is.
Yeah.
The source talks about this really important shift that happens at that point.
What's that?
The power dynamic changes.
Oh, yeah. That is big.
Right. You've peeked behind the curtain. You know their tricks.
And it can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
It's no longer about them controlling you.
Right.
It's about you reclaiming your agency.
Okay.
It's like being handed the keys to the prison cell you didn't even realize you were locked in.
Wow. Okay. So how do you make that real? What are some actual steps you can take to really solidify that power shift?
Well, the first thing is often the hardest, but it's crucial. No contact. Or at the very least, minimal contact.
No contact.
Yeah. And this isn't about punishing them.
Right.
It's about protecting yourself.
Okay. So what does that look like practically?
It can be a lot of things. Blocking their number, unfollowing them on social media, basically anything you need to do to create space for yourself.
Makes sense. But I imagine it can be so tough to actually do that.
It is, especially when those doubts start to creep in.
Which, let's be real, they probably will.
Oh, they will. They absolutely will.
So where do you go for support during those times?
Well, the good news is there are tons of resources out there.
Okay, good.
Online communities can be incredibly validating. It can really help to connect with people who understand what you're going through. And of course, therapy can be amazing.
Therapy, yeah.
A good therapist can help you really understand the dynamics of the relationship, work through the trauma, and rebuild your self-esteem, which is so important after being in a relationship with a narcissist.
Because you've likely been torn down quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times, people come out of these relationships feeling completely depleted.
Right. So it's about rebuilding yourself, finding those resources in that support system, and remembering that you're not alone.
Absolutely.
Because you're really not.
Yeah.
There are so many people who have gone through this.
Right. And the source brings up another interesting point. The narcissist might just move on to a new target.
Whoa. Yeah, that's a heavy thought.
It is. But it's important to remember that that's not about you.
Right. Okay, so thinking about that, what are the implications of that for both the narcissist and their new target?
Well, for the narcissist, it's often a cycle. They need that constant supply, that validation, and they'll keep moving from person to person to get it.
So it really is more about them than the people they're with.
Exactly. It's a reflection of their own emptiness.
Wow.
Their own need to feed off other people's energy.
Oof. Okay. That's intense. But understanding that can be helpful, right?
It can. Because for the person who's healing from that experience, it's important to know that you were not the problem. You were simply a source of supply.
You were just filling a role in their pattern.
Exactly.
I know we've covered a lot today, but I really hope this has been helpful for everyone listening out there. It's a lot to process. We know that.
Yeah, it is. But you're stronger than you think.
If this resonates with you, please be kind to yourself. Healing takes time, and it's definitely not linear. Lean on your support system and never forget your worth.
And remember that internal shift, that knowing in your bones that's your starting point. It's the beginning of reclaiming your life and building something truly beautiful.
And that's where we'll leave it for today. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.